Welcome back to Beautiful Work, Beautiful Life with Laurel and Laurel. Hi, Laurel. How are you today?
I'm well. How are you today?
I'm doing well. I love our month this month where we're focusing on loving self kindness.
Yeah.
Today, we are going to explore the question: are bad feelings really bad?
I can't wait to hear the answer to that.
So the answer is no. And we're going to talk about why, right?
Yes.
Laurel, don't you feel like we've all been indoctrinated into a world where sad and angry feelings are bad feelings?
Yes.
Yes.
And the world we live in has no tolerance for bad feeling.
Mhm.
And we often find ourselves in a place where we have no one to share that with.
Yeah. And we can start to feel guilty for
Yeah.
bad feelings, which piles another, what we would call bad feeling, what we've been
Right.
indoctrinated to
Right.
believe is another bad feeling on top of the bad feelings.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, so it's kind of uh, let shall we say, a runaway train if we're not careful, is how I feel
Yes.
about it. Yeah.
Yes. And I often think of it as, you know, that catch 22 when we
Mm.
have a feeling, an emotion that we label as bad, then we feel bad about having that feeling, and there comes more bad feelings, and so we're constantly in this circle
Right.
of just piling it on.
Yeah. Yeah. And complicating, the feelings that now oftentimes are not being energetic released. And so we've got this pile up internally. I mean, think of it literally like a car pile up, it's like the brakes are squeaking and you're not letting it out because it's bad. And now you're adding more bad feelings, right? Big air quotes, everybody on top
Yeah.
of it all. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So with loving self kindness, we can begin to reverse that process and give ourselves some space and some grace to release some of the built up feelings that we haven't maybe been allowed to feel fully or process fully or understand well, and begin to transform them into something that feels better for
Yes.
us. Yeah.
Yeah, because I do think that when we pile them on top, one on top of another and on top of another, right, we do end up with this, I'll say, backlog
Hmm.
of feelings that we have not processed. And I think that's what happens, a lot is we get to a place where it's the straw that breaks the camel's back, right? Where
Yes.
we have the quantity of feelings that we have kept, tried to contain in our body, and then it does show up in many places,
Yeah. Yeah.
sometimes physically.
Absolutely, physically it did for me because I was a big, big stuffer. I would be masterful at pretending everything was fine on the outside and on the surface, and I can still look like that, but I don't pretend so much anymore. I'm just kind of like, hey, this is me. Um, and yeah, and underneath, there was all kinds of things going on that I didn't know how to process well or didn't know how to share well, didn't feel like I had the space to put out there. And and so each one of us has our own story around that, right? Each
Yes.
one of us has our own story around, for some of us, it's the buildup. For some of us, we feel guilty or feel, and again, using air quotes, always air quotes around this bad for today, right? Is we feel like we maybe have expressed our feelings, our bad feelings, our anger, our sadness, our guilt, whatever, in ways that have been harmful to ourselves or to other people. And so they do feel like bad feelings, but it really isn't that they're bad feelings. It was bad behavior or behavior that you don't feel good about following the feeling because that's how you were processing it. So, each one of us, again, has our own story around this. So, for the beginning of this is, what is your story around bad feelings? What are the ones that you do feel badly about, or you feel like you've been conditioned to think are bad, right? We
Yeah.
started with anger, sadness, guilt.
It could even be other emotions, though, when I
Yeah.
think about it. I mean,
Mhm.
we're the ones who decide, it's our judgment of our feelings
Yep.
that we categorize them, we label them, right? And so,
Yeah.
I'll give an example of, maybe a situation where you've expressed love towards someone and they don't reciprocate. You
Yeah.
end up feeling bad,
Right.
right? Did you feel too much? Did you misread a situation, right? You analyze, you judge your own expression of emotion.
Right.
And so I love to think about, you know, we often have no place to bring big emotion. And then when we have big emotion that we label as bad, it just makes it worse, right?
Yeah.
And I know for me, the practice of loving self-kindness, that is a practice that I've used in my lifetime, especially in the recent years, um, to to maybe minimize my self-judgment, right?
Yeah.
To put a squash, if you will, squash, take care of my self-judgment, to learn a new practice, to treat myself with loving self-kindness. And so if I think about not just treating myself with loving self-kindness, but what if I can treat my judgment of my own emotion with loving self-kindness? What a difference that would make.
Wow, that's beautiful, Laurel. I feel like the kind of the layers of this are learning how to greet all our emotions with loving self-kindness, right? So, oh, here's fear. Oh, here's anger. Oh, here's guilt. Oh, here is frustration. Here's irritation,
Shame.
whatever,
Let's
shame.
not forget shame.
Yeah, right. Here it is. And what's going on here right now that I might be feeling this emotion, right? And so it's giving yourself enough space and enough grace and acknowledging what's happening, calling it for what it is. And sometimes we don't always know what the words are for a feeling, do we, Laurel, at the beginning?
No, we have no idea. I
Yeah.
mean, and I think that even if we don't know what it is, knowing that you can sense something is off in your body.
Yeah.
What if you don't have to even label what the emotion is, but it's the sensation that leads us to label it and question it and judge it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I know, in my Live Your Inner Power journal, that I often refer to for people because it has so much great content in there. One of the things that we do early on in the journal is begin to identify, how do you experience different emotions? So, what does fear feel like in you? Taking the time to actually slow down enough to feel the feelings and the emotions fully and then identify, oh, when I'm afraid, I get a clenching in my stomach, right? Or my legs feel like they're going to give out or whatever it is for you. And so that you can start to greet the emotion because you know what it's like when it comes up for you.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah.
I mean, looking at our own body for that data analysis, right? We
Mhm.
can begin to see the trend,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
so
And
good.
yeah, yeah. So we want to come back to, yeah, there are no bad feelings. Feelings and emotions are information,
Yes.
energy in motion. Emotion is energy in motion. So it's the energy that moves through your body that indicates something is going on, right? And you're trying to figure out how to process it.
As you're talking about that, I'm thinking about we always, we talk about inner knowingness and wisdom, right? As
Mhm.
if it's some great thing that
Yeah.
we want to achieve,
Yeah.
we want to learn. But our body has its wisdom. And when we start paying attention, we can really tap into that.
Yeah. Yeah. I know you often refer to one of the coaching classes you took about embodied self-awareness, right?
Yes,
And
yes.
in that work, we are learning how to be aware of ourself in a bodily physical way, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And when you think about, our emotions, which we think are very external, right? Our emotions appear, right?
Mm-hmm.
They come from within us, and then
Mm-hmm.
we stick them back down, right? I mean, we are, I guess the embodied self-awareness gives us the ability to just investigate and unearth all the feelings that we've stuffed back into our own bodies. And it's everything from, for me, I mean, big emotion sometimes shows up in tears. It doesn't mean I'm sad. It could be, I mean, I've been known to cry in joy, right?
Me
And it
too.
and it
Yeah.
looks very much like I'm sad, and I'm not. Um, because that's how it's interpreted by the outside world, right? It could be, an emotion that shows up as um, that anxiousness, like I can feel the tingling in my body. I can
Mm.
feel like anticipation. Right?
Mm.
That's an emotion that I've become aware of.
Yeah.
Um, anger, resentment, I can feel where I put that as well. And it's interesting because when you start really getting to know your body and where you put your emotion that you don't want it to show externally, it really does begin to make sense to know, oh, that circumstance or that event, even though I look like I handled it really well, and in my cognitive monkey mind, I tell myself I did really well in that situation. When something comes up in my body, I go, oh, maybe I physically, energetically didn't handle it the way I thought I did.
Yeah, I love that. When I was doing a lot of acupuncture, when I was working with my therapist back in the day, he was an acupuncturist too. And one of the points that he often would stimulate on me is called room screen. I love that. Do you love that name?
Yes, yes.
And so you wonder why he might have been working on that point for me, huh? Because I was always shoving, I'm sure, things right behind this outer appearance, this room screen of it's all back here, right? But what you see over here, what you're looking at out here is fine, 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 right?
It's
Yeah.
like that my favorite scene from The Wizard of Oz. Pay no
Right.
attention to the man behind the curtain.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when we begin doing this work, the beautiful work, and we maybe hopefully begin to dabble in some of these energetic practices that we're talking about, Tai Chi, meditation, yoga. Oh, so many. We're going to share some wonderful self-discovery tools with people in March. We're looking forward to that. Hypnosis, the Akashic records, the Enneagram, like all of these are as energetically connected and attuned as as like meditation, Tai Chi, yoga. And when we begin working in those areas, we start to shall we say, change the flow of energy in our bodies. And oftentimes, these places where we've been putting things, emotions, and feelings inside of us, they start to get moved. They start to come into flow again. And we might suddenly feel things and we don't really understand why, but we're releasing the old emotion that, we considered bad or whatever, we weren't going to let out into the world.
Yeah. Even without those type of energy tools, I may have mentioned this on past episodes, but my crybaby movie night, when I was in a place in my life, a time in my life where I had a lot of grief and sadness of loss. And some of it was lost before the loss happened, right?
Mhm.
Um, knowing that my marriage was going to come to an end, knowing my mother had cancer and not a good prognosis. Um, I did Friday nights crybaby movie because I couldn't let myself cry,
Yeah.
but God give me a tearjerker movie and I cry right from a minute in. And
Yeah.
it was very, I'll say, what's the right word?
Cathartic.
Cathartic,
Cathartic. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because I could allow the release of big emotion knowing that the emotion I was holding was mine,
Yeah.
but the expense of the emotion was for some other character,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so I just want to, strongly suggest to our listeners, if they're carrying big emotion, you know, find some avenue that is okay in the mainstream, right? In public,
Yeah.
watch a crybaby movie, a cry, a tearjerker, right?
Yeah.
Or comedy. Laughing out loud
Mm.
releases some of the energy. Even if we don't feel like we have much to laugh about, it is you know, the sensation, the energetic release of big emotion that is really good for you.
Right, right. So laughing, shaking, quaking, yelling, trembling, like the physicality of our ability to express our emotions is part of the healing process. And crying is obviously, a really big one for
Yeah.
our physical body. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what else do you want to say about this? Do we take a minute and just talk about maybe a practice of not labeling our emotions as bad?
Yeah, yeah, we could do that. And then I want to circle back to this beautiful work and the feelings when you get a beautiful life. What could happen that you want to be aware of? So let's
Let's jump right into
oh
that,
yeah, okay.
please.
And then we'll
We all,
circle back to, yeah, the other one as a kind of a follow-up for
I
journaling
was going to say,
before we finish. Yeah.
yeah, and the tip of not labeling emotions is just that.
Yeah,
There's
it
no
is.
there's no secret sauce to it. It is when you find yourself labeling an emotion as bad, give yourself a sanity check and let yourself know that you are the one who decides, is it positive or negative? And maybe it's simply neutral.
They all are neutral. They
Yeah.
all emotion is neutral. So we want to actually instill that as best we can into ourselves. And then what we want to understand is it is information. It might be information that you don't really like or you don't really want or whatever you have feelings around of the complicated, right? But they're neutral. We label them good or bad, positive or negative. We're
We
always doing
really
that.
do.
Yeah. Yeah. So coming into this space of, this was one of the crossroads that I came to as I um, continued on with doing my beautiful work and then actually living a beautiful life is sometimes we feel badly when we're around other people because we now have a beautiful life or we're really happy or we're really joyful or now we're stable and we don't have a lot of difficult things going on anymore. And sometimes we can start to just feel badly overall, like almost be embarrassed for it or guilty or whatever. And so, we want to be on the lookout for that. I am thinking about balance. When I think about this, I think a lot about energetically balancing, doing your part in helping the world, right? It's okay to be joyful. It's okay to be content. It's okay to be happy. It'll never be a steady state, trust me. I mean, I have my ups and downs. It's not perfect all the time, but
Yeah.
generally speaking, life is good after doing 35 years, right, of this work. Laurel just disappeared. Hopefully she'll come back in. We'll see. Laurel's back. Yay. Wow. Technology, you never know what's going to happen to you.
No, and I can't believe it. Now, we're in third season and we've not had that happen. And I feel really bad.
Ooh, universe testing Laurel and Laurel.
Yes, I know we were talking about, our bad feelings really bad and loving self-kindness as, the antidote or the cure for self-judgment. And right now, I'm sitting in a lot of feelings about how foolish, how silly, how stupid of me. Because
Wow.
Laurel, can I
Yeah.
share what happened?
Yes, yes.
I could blame it on an internet disruption, but that's not the real truth. My computer was plugged into the outlet, but not into my laptop.
Oh,
And
no.
I just lost all my battery. There it
Power
is.
gone. Power
It's
gone.
and in my human mind, I'm like, how could I let that have happened? right?
Now, let's say that the universe was conspiring on our behalf to help our listeners through this, right? So, because you again, like saying, right? You felt foolish, you felt this, you felt that, right? Embarrassment, whatever
Yeah.
around it happening,
Yes.
is such a great example. So, let's talk about what. What do you want to do right now? What do you need right now, Laurel, to like let yourself free yourself from those feelings, just acknowledge them, right?
Yes.
Just talked
Yes.
about, yeah,
Yes.
that's the
Acknowledge
beginning.
them, right?
Yep.
And recognize, I mean, I'm going to say that it is the pride I take in not making mistakes, right? So there comes
Mm.
some judgment of, right? And the worry of the external, how does it look if I'm a podcaster and I don't even know enough to plug in my laptop? Now, all of that self-judgment, now how I would handle it, I mean,
Yeah.
I do need to breathe deeply, like, let me just take a breath, right?
Yeah. I mean, that is such a healing way to begin, right? Is allowing ourselves to name it, to feel it, to name it. And in the breath work, right? In the breathing of it, we allow the energy to continue moving through our body instead of going back in, right? Which sometimes can be the automatic pattern. Like I know that
Yes.
was mine, right? I'm like,
Yes.
shove back, quick as you can. Versus just like, okay, stay and breathe. Just stay and breathe with it. Like that's my pattern now, right? Just stay and breathe with it. Stay and breathe. Yeah. Let it move. Yes.
And then I do have to say, finding humor in my humanness is really
Mm,
important to me.
yeah.
Like, I mean, it is one of the things I've been working on for years, how not to take myself so seriously, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so I'm going to offer right now, like, we can laugh about this, and I'm going to say, do you want to be Lucy or do you want to be Ethel?
Mm. Yeah.
Your choice.
That's right. That's right. Mm,
Ah,
so good. And I think the
yes.
loving self-kindness, right, is the humor. And it's also the ability to write in that moment. Sometimes this is so great. I actually feel like I've been doing this recently. And it's not always easy to remember. So it's kind of new for me, right? As a trying to get it established as a quick pattern, right? To override some of the old patterns that were less healthy is in that moment when I'm recognizing I'm in a space where I don't want to be or I want to repattern is can I forgive myself really quickly and say it out loud?
Oh, yes.
Right. I forgive you,
Yes.
Laurel. I let it go. I'm not going to hold on to this. I'm not going to stay with this. I'm just going to, be in a new place with this experience and these kinds of experiences, that kind of thing.
Yes. I think that's really, really important.
Yeah.
And self-forgiveness, I mean, we should do that more often, I'm going to say,
Mhm.
because when we find ourselves judging ourselves, that is the number one reason we should jump into self-forgiveness for the judgment. And then secondary, for whatever human mistake that we are judging ourselves for, because, we don't need to be perfect and have things all together at every moment of our life. That's
Right.
probably not realistic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, loving self-forgiveness, loving self-kindness, one of the ways that you can develop your pattern more strongly and I think connect more quickly is remember to even just put your hand up at your chest or your heart or up at your
Mhm.
throat or, against your cheek, somewhere where you feel like a kind of a loving sense, right? And and literally say to yourself, I'm going to let this go. I forgive myself for that little mistake that I made or that little thing that I did. And if I had to do it again, what would I do differently? Because I always love to allow myself, right, the in the reprogramming, especially when these are like long-standing patterns, right, is sometimes it takes a while to change. So to be able to say next time what I want to do is remember to just plug in my computer. In this instance, that's what that would look like, right? And in
That
something that's
would.
maybe a long standing pattern, it might look like next time I want to speak up more quickly. Right. Next time I want to speak with more grace or with more kindness in my voice or whatever it is, right? That feels like would be a corrective action that you can do
Yes.
differently next time. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the self-forgiveness tools I suggest to clients a lot is the Hawaiian prayer of
Mm.
um tell me it is
Ho'oponopono.
Ho'oponopono, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I forgive you, I love you, right? It,
Mhm.
it is such a powerful prayer.
So powerful.
And doing it, saying it to yourself, especially if our listeners are familiar with mirror work, saying that prayer of forgiveness to yourself in the mirror is really powerful,
Yeah.
really, really powerful. So
Super powerful. Yeah.
yeah,
Any kind of mirror work where we're doing that loving self kindness adds it's almost like a multiplying effect, right? An exponential effect of the way that it is healing for you. It can be healing for you.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Well, there we had that little interruption.
But it
It probably
served us.
it
It
took us
served
somewhere we
us.
weren't expecting to go today, Laurel.
Well, it didn't. It didn't. I mean, I think that we really wanted to speak into loving self kindness, and we hadn't touched yet on self forgiveness. So I'm glad that it brought that to the forefront.
Yeah.
Whatever I was saying when you disappeared, if it was something that I didn't actually finish, listeners, and you're wondering, well, Laurel, are you going to finish your story? I will
We'll get back to
listen.
that.
I will get back to that. I will, I am making a commitment to you right now that I will revisit this podcast and when we stop our recording, listen to it. And if I was in the middle of something, I'll revisit that story in the next episode. Yeah.
That will be so wonderful. And I'm just thinking right now, today in our recording, we've had two first ever or never before experiences.
Yeah.
One, I've never lost power when we're recording. Two, you've never left our listeners with a cliffhanger before.
Oh, cliffhangers.
So stay tuned, come back the next episode and find out what's going to happen next.
That's right. That's right. And if you have a minute, leave us a quick little comment or rating and let us know you like the podcast or what's good or
Yes.
what's working for you, because that really helps the podcast get out to more people. We would appreciate that.
That's right. Share the love.
Share the love. All right, Laurel,
All right.
off we go.
Thank you.
See you next time, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.